George Kilpatrick, Inspiration for the Nation. And in this segment of Inspiration for the Nation, we're talking to a trailblazer, a pioneer. Danita Thomas, in June of 1988, became the first woman to be a firefighter for the city of Syracuse. And I say firefighter because before that, it was firemen. But when she came along, they came up with a new title, Firefighters. Probably was firefighter before that, but nobody ever said that. But Danita
Yeah.
retired.
Yeah, it was. There were firefighters before that.
Right, before that, right? But they never said that, right?
But it was more appropriate when I came for them to start using it.
Sure. So in January of 2009, Danita retired from the Syracuse Fire Department, ending a career of trailblazing ups and downs and high achievement. But her name will forever go down in history as the first woman, and happened to be also the first Black woman as well. So how much has changed since Danita became the first female firefighter? Well, in real times, not much. When she came on the force, there were 61 firefighters. And Danita, guess how many there are today?
How many?
61.
Wow. That's 61 African Americans?
Well, 61, 61 African Americans, yes. As of
in the whole department.
Yeah, so in all the years, in the 20 plus 30 years, right? Since you first became the first
over
woman,
30 now.
Over 30 years. Well, we could say not much has changed. So let's talk about what it was like for you when you first came aboard. There were some challenges. Let's talk about that. So first of all, good morning. How you doing?
Hi, good morning, George. I'm doing great. Thank you for having me on your show.
Yes. So let's talk about what it was like then. And I was there because I remember the whole thing.
Yes. Everybody's I didn't realize how many people were actually watching me go through that period of time in my life. But it was easy to take the opportunity that was right in front of me. That part was easy. Mm-hmm. To accept the job and go in and fill out the application process and take the test, because that's what I've always done. I've always been competitive like that with, as far as jobs. I worked a lot in New York City, and I had to have that kind of determination, Mm-hmm. But it was easy I can't say it was easy at first, but I didn't see what was ahead of me as far as the racism, mm-hmm. And the sexism. I didn't mm-hmm. see that far ahead, but all I knew, is I wanted to get the job, and I wanted to get to be fairly good at it. So there were some obstacles I didn't expect.
You would talk about some of those obstacles. So when you first applied, I remember there was a commission for women. And were you the only woman that applied, or were there other women that applied and you just happened to be the one that made it?
That's interesting, George, because I didn't even realize the Women's Commission was actively recruiting looking for women to join the fire department. I was still new in town. So I didn't know anything about all the politics of it. So I just went on my own because I was working in the office building where the recruitment was taking place. And I just took the opportunity to sign up.
So for you, it was just, okay, this seems like something to do. Let me see what's going to happen here, and I'm going to do it.
George, my life has been like that, yes.
So you said that you were not prepared for the racism. What kinds of things happened when you first started? And the sexism. Let's start with the racism.
Well, growing up in New York City, I really didn't, believe it or not, didn't encounter racism. I think you lived in New York City.
I did,
too, for a while.
Right.
And that wasn't really, it didn't stand out down there as much as it does up north, further up in Syracuse area.
Right. You don't see it as
central New York.
And Danita, the part of that, people say, well, no, there was, and there's certain neighborhoods, but because you were around so many kinds of people, it may not have been as apparent, right?
It wasn't.
Yeah.
No, not going to school. or anything. I really didn't have to worry about that, till I came on the job in Syracuse. But it was a lot of isolation. They didn't really say much to harass me or anything, but they would leave me out of important, things that I needed to be part of.
Yeah.
Or they wouldn't teach me certain techniques in the training that I needed to know sometimes, just because they didn't feel like it.
Yeah, like it wasn't welcoming, and is what you're saying. It wasn't like,
That's
oh,
right.
we have Danita here, being the first first Black woman. Oh, let's. In other words, they
didn't prepare for me. They didn't
No.
get anything ready.
Yeah, and I understand that sometimes there would be a noose in some of the fire stations and things like that.
Yes, it was a noose. And let me see, I saw 2 different stations had nooses hanging. One was on a coat rack in the officer's room, which I cleaned. We rotated and cleaned the officer's room on different shifts, And the noose was just always hanging. The rope was there hanging on the coat rack.
Mm-hmm.
And one day I just happened to, say something about it.
And did they take it down?
Eventually they took it down after it was in the news.
Yeah. Right. Well,
they said they didn't realize that was a problem. I told them, no. I said, here's some history. And I took some old newspaper articles of lynchings and I showed it to the man on top.
And so, and the chief at the time was Robert Nelson. And so
yes.
you were at what, engine 2 at first, and then engine 8? Is that?
No, I was at engine 3 on Bellevue Avenue. That's where I started.
I started on Bellevue Avenue, right there, right in the heart of the community.
That's
sure.
Correct. And the officer, my superior there, made it clear that he didn't want to work with me. He was one of the officers, the instructors that trained me also.
And then said, I don't want to work with you. Like, he made it clear.
He made it very clear. Yeah. He said he didn't want to work. He didn't want to work with me.
And then I also understand that you were responsible. You complained about another thing. The Playboy and Penthouse magazines, and it would be a different thing today, right? We got so much technology, but
yeah, it would be different today.
At that time, people would put up what, for people that don't know, I mean, people of our age, we know they would be centerfolds, and they would be people would put those up in their locker room, in their lockers, as part of that. And so they had to make accommodations for you for the locker room. I understand they had to make accommodations for your uniform.
No, they never did any of that until I filed a formal complaint. I never had a locker room area, and I never, they just always had the magazines around. So they never changed anything upon my arrival.
And so it was a struggle.
I actually used a closet, like a supply closet, to change in for a couple of years.
And so when you look back at that experience, what do you think got you through it?
No, I would just, I'd pray, I'd meditate, and I think about generations before me, the women who toiled in the cotton fields with their babies on their back and their children by their side. I said, if they can do that, I can deal with anything if they can get through that. I mean, the ancestors, let's just call them.
Did anybody ever say, okay, you've been through enough, I got you now, we're going to take care of you, meaning you're going to be welcomed into I want to call it the brotherhood. That's the only word I could think of. But
no,
this never happened.
No, not with the guys in Syracuse. Actually, other firefighters around the country embraced me more when we joined the International Association of Black Professional Firefighters. They were welcoming to me, very welcoming.
And at that time, I believe, was the firefighters of color in Syracuse focus? Did that start at some point, and to advocate for the African American and firefighters of color? Did that actually become a resource for you as well?
Yeah, I actually helped found the organization. I was the first vice president. And when we met with the other brothers and sisters across the country, and across the world, we decided to form our own local chapter of the organization called Focus. So we actually sat down together to come up with the name Focus. There were several other names we considered. I can't remember them offhand, but Focus stood out, because it was an acronym of Firefighters of Color United in Syracuse. So I was hoping that organization, it was supportive, but it wasn't as supportive as it could have been, our chapter, for my issues.
And so when you look back at your time then, and to see that now Syracuse has a Black fire chief, would that have been something that you could have ever imagined as you were going through what you were going through?
Not at all. Not at all. I'm still in shock about that. That's cool. That's great.
Yeah, Robert Mons appointed fire chief in 2018. And so this isn't, again, and why are you so shocked about that?
I just never, because actually when I started, not only was I the only first woman, there were no Black officers out of the 400 and something firefighters. There were no Black lieutenants, captains. So when I retired, I think there was a captain at that point and a few lieutenants. So I never thought of, I had never actually seen a Black fire chief in Syracuse. I've seen them outside of Syracuse. So I'm shocked because there's politics involved too,
Sure. You've been, I'm gonna tell a little tale. I said, you haven't been really wanting to talk as much about this experience. Why?
Well, George, it wasn't one of the most pleasant experiences for me. It took a toll on me, both physically, because of the demand for the work, and mentally, to be honest. It was very stressful. It wasn't just stressful going into the fires. I had to watch my back also, with the guys, some of the people around me, not necessarily my crewmates that I was working with in any particular night or day. But I had to look at it through a different lens and do the job. So it took a toll, I did it. I set out to do it and I just did it. I stayed for 20 and a half years. I became an inspector, which I got to work on my own a little bit more. After 10 years or so on the front lines fighting fires, I became an inspector and a fire marshal. So, it's all good. As a pioneer, as the first, I had to go through all the bumps and bruises. I mean, even you mentioned my uniforms earlier. That they didn't have anything that could fit me at the time, so I had to wear larger gear, larger boots,
And
than what my size.
And at some point, did they,
They eventually got it together, but I had to make an official complaint.
So like everything that you got was because you had to, it wasn't like, oh, I need this. Oh, okay, Danita, here you go. It was, well,
no.
You had to, everything.
I wish it was like that. No, I had to actually write letters and file complaints and meet with the chiefs by myself. Maybe a union representative would be with me every once in a while, but they wouldn't want me to speak and say certain things, but I'd say it anyway.
So of the 61, I believe, last I checked, there's about 4 African-American women of those 61. Have they reached out to you at all? Have you reached out to them? Have y'all had,
Yes, Tamika Barnett and I have been in contact with each other quite a few times. I really like her. She's doing a great job in the city there. She's very active, I see, in other things, that she's doing around the community. But I stay in touch with the others on Facebook. I try to get updates.
What are they saying, that things are similar for them, or 30 years later, are things better for them?
Things are better, it seems to be. Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
yeah, I think things are better.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, thank God. I was hoping that I accomplished some things while I was there.
Obviously, let me ask you this: what is your advice then? Because this is a lot. I mean, you endured just like many others before you as the first, right? You took all the insults and all of that. You had to advocate for yourself. What would be your advice to any young woman right now who is seeking to become a firefighter or walk into a space that has been male dominated, that isn't welcoming? What did you learn about yourself that perhaps you can transfer to others, even as you suggest it was mentally and physically exhausting for all of the reasons that
just be prepared to not rely on anyone else to help you get through this.
Mm-hmm.
You have to have faith in something or someone to pray to just get your strength from, and just go it alone. You're going to have to go it alone on this one. If it's a route that I took, you got to go it alone. Some people do have to just do it.
So then I would add, then make sure, I guess, just to support what you're saying, make sure you have your support network then in place, because what you're saying is you're going to need them more than you think.
Yeah, that's right. Exactly, George. Exactly. That helps a lot.
Yeah, you're gonna need that, because and like you said, there's more resources available. Supposedly we're more woke. Supposedly we're less tolerant of some of the things that you had to go through. Supposedly, right? I say supposedly because
yes. Let's keep it real. Supposedly.
Right. Supposedly. So, I mean, I just think that I wanted to give you the shout out because I think, I mean, you're living history, right? And sometimes
thank you.
you are living history. I'm looking at what the what folk has said about you. What did they say that you what is your quote? Being the first woman on the job was a culture shock for both me and the guys. The job was a bit more difficult for me because they didn't have clothes to fit me. This made climbing the ladder and crawling around more difficult because my gear would get caught and I would get entangled or tripped. Right? I mean, so
yes, that was very awkward during those days.
Yeah,
and it was very dangerous too in a job like that.
Yeah, I tell you, you know what's interesting, because about the time that you were becoming a firefighter was the same time that I was helping to plan the Juneteenth celebration, and I only know that because of the time, June of '88. So, what was the date exactly that you joined the force?
June 13th,
June 13th.
1988.
So, do you know that is the
Started
same
training.
day? That was the same day of the first Juneteenth celebration.
Oh, was it?
So how ironic is that?
Wow.
June 13th was the first Juneteenth in Syracuse.
Wow.
And your first day
was my first day.
How about that?
First day. Wow. And I remember every Juneteenth, I thought, but I guess that day might have been a little different. No, I think after my first day of training that day, I probably went to Juneteenth, said I needed a break. I want to see what's going on.
But the other thing that you did, which was part of Juneteenth, and then I know you were down the neck, was the Mercedes ladies would do the fashion show.
We were involved from the beginning.
That's right.
Juneteenth. Wasn't Juneteenth held at
Southwest Community
Center?
Yes.
We used the stage in there, and we did a lot of performances. Oh, yes.
Mercedes ladies. Now, I believe it was the second year, 1989, because I have and you guys, you were with us a few years.
Yes.
And my
we participated.
Yeah, my former assistant Connie.
Yes.
Well, shout out Connie.
Connie, hey girl. But that was my partner. Me and her took it. We stepped forward with the Mercedes ladies, and she was right there by my side with the whole time. Well, I really appreciated her.
And it was all, and so it was also. I mean, and here's the other piece that people should know about you. Despite what you went through, you would still speak to the school children. You would still go and talk to the young ladies. You were still active in the community. You wanted to give back, and you were doing all of those things even while you were going through hell at the job. And I think that says so much about who you are and
Well,
what you're
thank
about.
you. Thank you, George. No, I still have to inspire young people if I can. I'm not going to let my negative feelings or personal feelings get in the way of that part of it. There are times that I'd say, no, I'm not going to talk
Right.
or whatever. But then when I became an inspector, I also had to inspect all the school buildings in the city.
Mm-hmm.
So they would invite me to come and speak all the time, and I would oblige them. I enjoyed it very much.
Well, Danita, I just think that what would you like your legacy to be?
Well, let's see, I tried, I did, and I accomplished it. And now we have to set goals in life for, what we want to accomplish in a lifetime, so I did it.
Would
you
would
know.
would you would you like an apology the from the city for what they made you experience? Would that be something? Would you appreciate that? Would you like a proclamation or some sort of acknowledgement that I went through this and I would like to be acknowledged for that?
I know I've been acknowledged, but
But I mean an apology.
an apology, it would be fine. I would accept it if they did it, but I don't expect it. No.
So
I've done what I needed to do.
Hey, Chief Mons, you could do something right here, right now. Make it right. I'm looking for a proclamation to Danita Thomas. We apologize for what we put you through.
No. I don't hold anything against Syracuse. As a matter of fact, a lot of people don't know, but I was born there.
Yeah.
I came from New York City. They thought I was, a New Yorker, but I had actually been born right up at Krause Hospital. And my parents moved back to New York City like when I was about 3.
All right.
And then I came back as an adult, so I just want this city to know that I was one of their own.
Yeah. Oh man. Well, you know what? You are one of our own. You're a trailblazer. You're a history maker. You're a pioneer.
Thank you.
The first woman ever.
Thank you, George.
To be a firefighter in the city of Syracuse. Danita Thomas.
Thank you.
Black history, living history, inspiration.
Thank you for having me. I said, and blessings to everyone there in Syracuse who supported me through this whole thing, this whole experience. I really appreciate them.
Danita, we appreciate you. Danita Thomas, living history, inspiration for the nation.